So this what if is not. I've seen it a couple of times and I like it. So I'm gonna do this one. But yeah. I hope you appreciate this one. Also, still talking about getting to 100 subscribers, maybe more at the end by the end of this year. Hope we can hit that goal. Now, let's get into the story. We start our story off with Izuku Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya, like every other kid who he lives with, or what not lives with, but you know, every kid that he lives on the same block with, he basically was born, well, not like every other kid, but he was born a normal child with a normal kind of family, except for his dad not being there. But you know, basically he's fine. Okay. Anyway, Izuku Midoriya had a normal life up until the age of 4, when Izuku Midoriya was taken to the quirk doctor. Izuku Midoriya was pronounced quirkless, and he did not have a quirk. Izuku Midoriya was quirkless for no reason at all, and all Deku wanted was to be a hero. And for the first few days, everyone made fun of Izuku, especially since he was smart. He was one of the smartest kids in his class, if not the smartest. So, Izuku, thinking that all he could do without having a quirk was just be a good benefit to society, which you should normally be, but anyway, moving on, he decided that he was going to try to gain as much knowledge as he possibly could he wanted to see how much knowledge he could learn so that he could help society, help heroes, maybe even help himself. So, Deku, being a part of the gifted class, was taken on a personal field trip with 5 other students in his class. Now, at this age, Deku is 13, and Deku goes to a science lab where they're studying more efficient ways to get clean energy from solar panels in a more reliable, more stable way to keep the planet from the planet's resources being used up, so that we can have a planet to see for tomorrow. Basically, he does this, and he asked the teacher if he could see one of the exhibits, and the teacher said sure, but just stay in the main area. And he said okay, and he left. He went over and he went to a test tube and he saw it. But that's when he knocked the test tube over and it fell behind the desk. And Izuku looked around and saw that everyone had moved on, and there was no one there to go get it. Deku knew he wasn't supposed to go back there, but he didn't want anyone to find out he broke something. So he went down to reach it. When he finally tries to grab onto the test tube, he feels something strange. He feels legs, and then all of a sudden he's just screaming, "Ow!" He's just gotten bit by something. He flicks his finger quickly and looks for the vial and picks it up and puts it back, when the security guards rush over and ask him if he's okay because he screamed. And he says, yeah, I'm fine. And the security guards say, well, we're going to take you to go see, like, the hospital just in case. And Izuku says, no, it's okay, I'm fine. And they say, yeah, but just to be safe, there's a lot of dangerous chemicals here, kid. Don't fight us on this. Just come with us to the doctor. You'll be able to see this another day. And he says, fine. And then Deku says, wait, but can I call my mother first to let her know that I might be late home? And they say, yeah, kid, we'll give you a minute. And Deku starts dialing up his phone when he sees that on the side of his hand that the spider's back, or whatever bit him. But he sees it's a spider, and it bites him again, and he slaps it off. This time he stomps it the moment it hits the ground. But in doing this, he knocks over a vial and the vial falls on his hand. He tried to catch it, but it broke, and it fell on his hand, and the glass got stuck in his hand. And then security guards come rushing back. Kid, didn't I tell you to stay away from the exhibit? It's dangerous. And he says, yeah, I know, but there was a spider. He's like, no, kid. Just come with us so you can go to the hospital, man. And the guy shrugs his head and says, geez, kids these days. Am I right? And his partner says, yeah, man, I understand. Deku feels bad. He goes to the hospital. He goes to basically the nurse's office inside of the office or science lab or whatever, and they basically give him a band-aid for both of his bites, which are bleeding aggressively, and they tell him that it's just a superficial wound and it's fine, and they say that you wouldn't happen to know what spider bit you, and he says, no, I wasn't paying attention, I just swatted it away and stomped it. And they say, it only bit you once, right? And he says, yeah, just one time. And then Deku says, yeah, I got bit. And then they say, okay, well, you can go back to the rest of your class now. And Deku starts to go back to the rest of his class, but first has to go grab his bag from the front. He goes to grab his bag from the front when all of a sudden he's running, and he notices that he's really getting some distance, and he notices that he's not that physical, he's not that fast, so he's wondering what's going on, and he runs, and then he gets to the end of the hallway, is about to turn the corner to the security guards to go get his bag, when his head just starts blaring, and he starts to fall off balance, and it starts to blare even louder. And then when he turns the corner, finally he sees the security guard, but he jumps back and hits the wall. And the security guard says, kid, are you okay? Jeez, I didn't mean to scare you. I didn't know you were so jumpy. And he says, no. And Izuku tries to move to get his bag, but can't. His hands are stuck. And Izuku says, what's going on? And they say, kid, are you alright? Are you stuck in the wall or something? And they say, no, I'm fine. And he says, okay, here's your bag. We'll just go do a patrol or something. And Deku tries to get his hand free, manages to get one free, but ends up holding on to his wrist. Then he goes to pick up his bag, but then says, what if that sticks to my hand too? And then Deku says, what am I gonna do? I don't know what's going on. And I can't tell anybody. They'll think I'm a freak. I'm a quirkless person. It means I don't have powers. I can't let anyone know that vial spilled on me, okay? I can't let anyone know. So he grabs his bag, and surprisingly his hands don't stick. Deku doesn't touch anything and just sits quietly in the back of his class for the rest of the field trip. When they finally go home, Deku on the way home just starts looking at everybody, and everyone's looking at him, and Deku's wondering why. And then he finally sees a person, and they say, "Are you okay, kid? You're sweating a lot." And Deku says, "What do you mean? I'm not sweating." And he's like, "Kid, are you sick? Do you need to go to the ER?" And then Deku's eyes start to blink, and he starts to lose consciousness, and he falls to his back. And the people around call 911 because Deku just fell and fainted. He goes to the hospital, where he wakes up to see his mother holding his hand, and his mother trying to bribe him out of his unconsciousness by offering to make his favorite food. Deku wakes up and asks his mother what he's doing here, and she says, "You passed out in the middle of the street." And he says, I did?" And she says, "Yeah, you did." Deku says, "Wow, okay." And the doctor comes in and says, says, "Do you guys need a minute?" And she says, and then Inko says, "No, we're fine." Doctor, what's wrong with Izuku? And the doctor says, "Well, ma'am, that's the problem. We don't know. See, because what it looks like is a quirk, but your son doesn't have a quirk because your son's quirkless, correct?" And she says, "Yes, my son is quirkless. So, ma'am, your son's hands are currently sticking to the bed, and he's unable to move." And she says, "You are, Izuku?" And he says, "Kind of, Mom." And Izuku looks down, and she says, "What it looks like is that your body has been introduced to your quirk for the first time, and your body can't handle it. Most people are born with a quirk, but you probably were born with a quirk. It just didn't awaken, and because it's gone now, your body's so used to the way it is, it can't change. You see, because toddlers, if you've had something since you were a baby, it's not new to your system. But once you get to a certain age, your system is finite, which means that the slightest change can cause meltdown, which is what happened here. Your quirk activated for the first time, and your body wasn't ready to handle it because of the fact that your system was already finite. So you're gonna have to stay here for at least overnight. We're gonna try to find some medicine, but we're gonna also take you back to the quirk doctor and get your quirk properly assessed this time." And he says, "Okay, we'll do it in the morning. I'm gonna give you some time now. Sorry for talking your ear off." And he says, Dinko says, "No, doctor. Thank you." And she walks out and closes the door. And Inko says, "What are we gonna do, Izuku?" And he says, "I don't know, Mom." And then Izuku falls back asleep, only to wake up the next morning with his mom laying on him sleep, and him feeling great, feeling like he could eat a horse. He feels great and fine. Deku wakes up his mother and tells her that, "Isn't it time for us to go to the quirk exam office?" And she says, "Yeah, it is. Just let me get some coffee." And he says, "Yeah, Ma, I'll see you there." And she says, "Wait, what?" And Deku hops up and puts on his clothes in the bathroom and runs out of the door. She says, "Well, for someone who's sick, he definitely has a lot of energy." She says, "Deku, don't run in the hallway. You know there are people over there. If you hit anybody, I'm not paying for your medical bills again." And he says, "Okay, Mom," and keeps running and running and running, avoiding everybody by inches. And every time he gets close to hitting someone, his head blares. And he's wondering what's going on. And then a doctor tries to touch him, and he slaps his hand away. And the doctor says, Whoa, are you okay?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just don't touch me." And he's like, "Oh, okay, where are you going, young man?" And he says, "I'm going to the quirk doctor." "The quirk doctor? Why? A lad of your age should have already had a quirk if he was gonna have one." And he says, "Well, apparently I have a secret quirk that I never knew about." It's like, "Young man, calm down. It's okay. Just walk with me. The quirk doctor's over here." He says, "Did you come here with your parents, or are you here by yourself?" And he says, "Nah, I'm here with my mom." He says, "Okay. Did you tell her you were going here?" And he says, "Yes. Yes, I did tell her." And she says, "Okay, well, let's go to the quirk doctor." Now, Izuku didn't know it at the time, but that was All Might. And that was All Might, and he was the one, who told him this and calmed him down. Sorry, my throat was hurting for a second. I had to clear it. Anyway, moving on with the story. Deku goes to the quirk doctor, and after the test is over, it appears that Izuku Midoriya has the powers of a spider, it seems like, but it's not the name of your quirk. The name of your quirk It's Bioshock. He says, why is that? And he says, because basically, it appears that you have powers similar to that of a spider. Like, you can shoot synthetic webs that come out of your wrists. And you can turn invisible, or at least blend in with your surroundings. You can also emit an electrical charge, sort of like a stun gun. And you can also absorb a small quantity of energy, but don't absorb too much, because apparently your body overloads and just starts releasing them energy waves and pulses. So don't absorb too much. But other than that, you appear to have enhanced reflexes, strength, agility, and dexterity. And also healing. You also have a superpowered immune system. And accelerated healing. About 2 times faster than a normal human. Also, your bone density is a lot stronger. You're a lot tougher than a normal human. He says, okay, well, that's great. Oh, before you leave, also, you have 2 other things that I find interesting. We've never seen this before, but you have some kind of precognition to avoid danger. And he tells Izuku to turn around, and the doctor tries to throw a punch at Izuku's face, and Izuku immediately dodges and goes to punch the doctor, but holds back. And he says, see what I'm saying? There's no way you would have known that I was going to punch you. Especially not with your back turned and me as your doctor. So you have some kind of precognition, but it only works for danger. You can't read minds, so you don't know what that is. Also, there's some dormant thing in your body. We don't know what it is, but we can't figure it out. We just... It's sitting there waiting for something. But we don't know what it is. We assume that it's probably another power. But we just don't know. And she says, well, thank you, doctor, for helping us, but we have to go now. And he says, yes, of course. And then the doctor looks at Izuku menacingly and says, how very interesting. It appears it's already started. And All Might, being in the same room because he took Izuku there, tells Izuku farewell with his new powers and asks Izuku if he wants to be a hero. And Izuku says, yeah, I guess so. That's what I've always wanted since I was a kid. And he says, well, why not be one? And he says, what do you mean, why not be one? And he says, well, you have powers now, so you could be a hero. He's like, what do you mean, go to one of those fancy schools? I just got my powers just now. It's like, well, young man, would you like me to train you? I could make you strong and used to your powers. And he says, train me to be a hero? And he says, why not? You seem to be a special case. And I like you. You're interesting. So, how about it? Young... And he says, oh, right, Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. He says, young Midoriya then. Can you come meet me at the beach? Every day at 12. You will be home by 6. This is okay. We start tomorrow, young Midoriya. And starts laughing. Ha, ha, ah, ah, ah. And walks out. Then jumps away. Izuku says that was one strange character. And Inko laughs. And Izuku asks her what's funny. And she says, it's hilarious that you don't know who that is. And he's like, well, who is it? And he's like, and Inko's like, it's All Might. And he's like, who's All Might? Your favorite hero when you were a kid. You were a favorite hero. He's like, yeah, I've heard of All Might. It's the guy who's the #1 hero, right? Yeah, you used to love him as a kid. Yeah, I remember. It's just, I didn't find much interest in him after the fact that I found out that I did have a quirk. So, yeah, I kind of gave up on him. But anyway, no more depressing things. Got a big day tomorrow. Gotta go to sleep. So let's get home. And Izuku goes to assume the way he would normally open the door, when all of a sudden his hand bends back and his web shoots out on the door. And then he tries to pull. He thinking he was shot with something. He tries to pull and rips the door off the hinges. And Izuku says, "Uh-oh," and turns slowly to see his mom crying. He says, No, I'm sorry, Mom. It's like, I've had that car for forever, Izuku. Never had anything wrong with it. You need to get your powers under check. You were definitely going with All Might. He says, No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Gotta go get that car fixed. Jesus. And they get in the car, and Izuku tries to go and goes through the door, well, where the door used to be, and they drive home. The next day at 12, Izuku meets All Might at the beach, and All Might says, "Young Midoriya, this training will not be easy. So if you are not ready to be a full-fledged hero and put in the hard work, then leave now." And he says, "Nah, I'm ready. Plus, I can't go home. My mom kind of is annoyed with me right now." And All Might says, "What was that, Young Midoriya?" And he says, Nothing. Yeah, I'm ready." And they begin their training. First off, All Might trains Deku in the art of fighting. Basically, he teaches him how to use boxing, how to use kickboxing, MMA, and even teaches him how to do a little jiu-jitsu and taekwondo. He teaches him how to get on the ground and fight, how to punch, how to strike, how to kick, how to grapple, how to joint lock. Teaches him everything. And even some extended moves. And with Deku's agility, dexterity, and strength, he excelled at all of them easily. Deku at this point has been trained in almost all of his moves, all of the fighting styles All Might knows. And basically, Deku made up his own fighting style, which is called the spider's web. And basically, it's a fighting style where Deku uses his webs to get to high places and constantly move while shooting webs at people. And also controlling, like, his surroundings, like using things around, like a trash can to hit someone, or a car, or a door, or a building, or a brick. Anything he can find to rip it. He even grabbed a branch off, ripped it off the tree, and swung it at All Might. And he says, "Now you're learning, young Midoriya." And then All Might tells Midoriya something interesting, because Midoriya's intellect. He's intelligent. He says, "Young Midoriya, you shoot webs like a spider, correct?" And he says, "Yeah. Well, do you have a limit to that, young Midoriya?" And he says, "Yeah, I assume so. I've never found it." And he says, "Well, most spiders have a limit to how much silk they can make at one point in time. So, what if you use different parts of your hand?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you see, spiders have different types of silk for different types of tasks. So maybe you do too." And he says, "Hey, that's not a bad idea. But how would I do that?" And he says, "Well, a spider's web comes from their butt. So I'm pretty sure that's the scientific term there. But anyway, basically, they control it through there. So your webs come out of your wrists. So maybe that's the key to it." And Deku just sits on that for a while and starts moving his hands, his fingers, very slowly. And starts seeing that he can shoot thicker webs that last longer. And he can even shape them by using his fingers in intertwined motions. By using his middle finger and his pointer finger and crossing them, he makes a certain type of web that can be easily morphed into something. It uses the density and the elasticity strands or proteins to mix together, which he can make web balls. So basically make these things that are super dense and are really heavy that he shoots, that form together while in the air and hit things. And they also stick to things. He's learned how to use it very accurately. He has 2 years to learn how to use this. He also trains his spider sense as well. So he knows how to approach incoming danger easily. And on his invisibility, he learned how to control that. In his bioelectric shock, he hasn't quite gotten that down, but he can activate it in one finger. But he's never gone for a blast before. And all my transmission tells him to go as far as he can and try to use it and see what he can do and dig deep. And Deku focuses on wanting to destroy the tree, to rip the tree in half, and his hand starts to glow with a bright orange yellowish light, and he begins to throw the punch when all of a sudden his head flashes and he sees this type of creature and he doesn't know what it is, and he opens his eyes and he's about to hit the tree and he says ah, and he punches the tree, the parts of the tree break. And he says, "You're great, young Midoriya. Nice war cry, by the way." And he says, "What?" And he says, okay, yeah, thanks, All Might." It's like, what was that? And Midoriya, basically, and that's the end of the training montage. Basically, now, by this point, Bakugou knows that Midoriya now has some surprise quirks that he was never had before, and he says, "Deku, you're strong, right?" And he says, "Yeah, I guess you could say so." "Then you should fight me." And he's like, "Why?" And he says, "Because we're friends, right?" And he says, "Yeah." "Then we should see who's stronger." He's like, "Okay." So a training session. He says, "Yeah, we'll do it after school." And he says, everyone can come too if they want. Because Deku was already one of the smartest people in the class without his powers, but now he's one of the strongest people in the class too. They take it outside and they begin to throw their fight. And Bakugou asks him if he'll be using his webs, and he says, "This is a real fight. I'll be trying to disable you any possible way I can." And he says, "I wouldn't have it any other way." And they begin their fight. And Deku, being the way he is, starts absolutely slapping, destroying Bakugou. He dodges his punch, grabs him, throws him over his shoulder. Then he twists his arm and puts him in a joint lock. Immediately, Bakugou tries to get up by using an explosion to make himself and Deku float in the air, then change direction, pushing Deku off of him. Deku catches himself and uses his webs to grab on Bakugou's back, hits the ground and slams and whips his webs down towards the ground, and Bakugou hits the ground. But Bakugou, recovering from this, grabs the webs back and pulls Deku forward and then kicks him out of the way. Says, "That's the problem with you. That's the problem with you, webs. You always rely on your webs too much. They're not, just as much as they're useful and they're an advantage, they're a liability." And he says, "Oh, right." And Deku slams his hand in the ground, and electricity starts shooting out. And he says, No, that won't work." And then he looks back to find Deku, but he can't see him. He says, "Oh, so you're going invisible now?" So that was a distraction. Nice. And then Deku hits Bakugou right across the face. And then he jumps up and grabs him and slams him down. Bakugou still doesn't know where he's getting attacked from. he gets kicked in the back of the head, and then an uppercut, and then a drop kick. He's getting absolutely pummeled by Deku. And he doesn't know how to stop it or find it. And that's when he notices that every time he gets attacked, it's either from the front or the back. And he says, he's invisible. He's hiding. So he'll attack me from the back next. And then the moment Deku starts to attack, Bakugou just puts his hands out, grabs Deku's head, and explodes him in the face. Which does nothing more than singe his skin and pushes him back. And he says, see, that's the problem. I bet you didn't see that coming. Because even I didn't. And he says, And then Deku says, I want to win. I want to win. And I have to win. And I will win. And then he said, and then something, he can't hear it. He can't see it, but he hears something in his head. It says, how badly do you want to win? And he says, who's there? And Bakugou says, what are you talking about? And then he says, whatever, man. And he goes to walk away and starts talking to all of them about how he beat Deku. And he says, how badly do you want to win is what I said. And he's like, who are you? Who's talking? And he says, it's me. The guy who's always been in your body since the beginning. Me. You know who I am. You've seen me before. Don't play dumb. Around a year ago, when you tried to split that tree, I was there. That I'm what you saw. And he says, get out of my head. And he says, Deku, are you okay? And that's when he says, you want to win, right? Well, this is how. And then immediately a whole bunch of black goo just starts coming out of Deku's wrist and wraps around his hand. And then his hand just enlarges and grabs Bakugou and slams it and throws him into a tree. And then Deku says, what's going on? Bakugou, you alright? And then everyone starts getting scared and they want to call the police or the heroes or something. Because Deku then transforms, fully getting enveloped by the goo, having sharp teeth, and his voice gets deeper. And he starts to look at Bakugou, now being a whole lot taller. He says, this is what you did to my host. And he says, host? What do you mean, host? And he kicks Bakugou through another bunch of trees and grabs him with his webs and throws him into the wall. And he says, this is what it takes to win. And then that's when a hero arrives. And it's All Might. And All Might says, back, foul villain. You will no longer hurt these children. And he says, oh, it's you. The other guy in here always talks about you. And this is the other guy, All Might says, you are like a plague. You spread like wildfire. But when he needed you most, when he needed someone to believe in, even though he was quirkless and could never be a hero like you, you have the audacity to train him. The guy who's the perfect hero. And he says, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're coming with me. And he goes to try to smash him when he jumps out of the way and kicks him in the face, sending him flying. All Might recovers and then throws two more Detroit smashes, which he dodges. Deku dodges. And then he says, who are you? And he says, and his face lifts up and reveals to see an unconscious Izuku Midoriya. And he says, Izuku? Why are you doing this? And he says, it's not Izuku who's talking right now. Let's just say he's taking a little nap. He wanted to win. And that's what it takes. And then he grabs All Might by the face and pulls him closer. And forms a sharp blade in his right hand. And is going to stab All Might. All Might trying to fight the ghoul off, but it's just surrounding him. And he can't get out of it. He tries to Detroit Smash, but he can't fully extend his arm long enough to get any wind pressure. He can't blow him off. And then he looks him in the eyes and he says, you know what? If my host, or I guess we are Spider, then I guess the alter ego, or the dangerous part, would be the Venom. And goes to stab Deku. I mean, not Deku. He goes to stab All Might. But before he can, he stops. And he starts to scream. This blood-curdling scream. It's from President Mike. And it starts to scatter and discombobulate the now known as Venom alter ego of Izuku Midoriya. And he starts to scream and starts to split off of Izuku. And starts to turn more into a liquid with just the face. And starts yelling and screaming and lashing out and destroying things. And then gets pushed back finally hard enough at the right decibel and dissipates completely. Izuku Midoriya's body falling limp as being knocked out. But that is where I'm going to leave this episode. I don't know if I did a good Venom voice, but I feel like I did. But yeah, if you couldn't already tell, that was the spoiler. Yeah, that's what I wanted to put in here. I wanted to make him the ultimate Spider-Man. So basically, yeah, that's the end of the video. I hope you liked this one because, man, I sure did. I love this. This is great. And especially since I finally get to do a villain. Yes, finally. Anyway, I'm getting too excited. But thank you for the support. Thank you. Remember, I want to see if we can hit 100 subscribers by the end of this year. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you really liked it. And turn on notifications so that you can always be up to date on the next part of this series and all the other series I do. So with that being said, peace out.